So it's been a week. It's a matter of review. You came up a little lukewarm on episode 1 of The Last of Us. I think you gave it like a 5 spot out of 10. I think I gave it a couple more bucks than that. Nothing crazy. I didn't go over the top with the ratings. We had some predictions. We were both tacitly wrong on all of our stuff.
Yeah.
Dude, I'll give them this. They stuck to their narrative guns for as much polarization and hateration as it's going to get. They did the thing, so spoilers or something. No two ways about it. They did the thing. I don't even want to say it out loud because it's in my head. It's just the air quote, the thing.
Yeah, we've been talking around the issue, skirting it a lot between season 1 reviews and now our season 2 reviews. Also on our Frostcast podcast every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.
Coming through and so the cat's out of the bag, man. They did the Abby golf coursing Joel's brains out.
Yeah.
I'll say this I'll say this up front. Right as soon as she hit him with the shotgun, I fast forwarded. I was like, nope, I'm good. Don't need to see it. You know, there's a few scenes in TV history that I don't need to see. This was one of them. I didn't need to see Glenn really buy it on The Walking Dead. I'm like, nope, don't need to see it. There's
Never
just certain
got that
shit
far in The Walking Dead.
But it's notorious. I'm sure you know what I'm sure you probably know what happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, his eyes pop out.
Just saying, he takes Negan's Lucille to the back of the skull and pop goes the weasel. There's just I got enough darkness floating around up here. There's enough real life shit floating around up here. I don't need any extra. It's different. Like if I were to pick up The Last of Us 2 on PS5, you know what I'm saying, and play it on a heavy discount, I'd never buy it full price. And play it on a heavy it's a video game. It's easier to just be like, it's a game. There's something about TV that when they go that graphic and it's broad daylight, it's not a horror movie at that point. It makes me sick to my stomach in a way that I don't enjoy that. There's a reason I don't watch The Terrifier, you know, that brand of horror movie. It's not for me anymore. Like it's, I gotta play the cliche card. Like I had a kid and things changed in my head. Like I don't like that kind of stuff anymore. So
I wasn't really into the Terrifier type
horror movies either.
So compare this to the Joe Pesci scene from Casino.
Yeah. Solid. I mean, and that'll turn your stomach too. But that's, for me, that was graphic, but it was blunt instrument graphic, and it was more of like, you know, they made him watch his brother die first. So there's some psychological crap in there. This was graphic and stupid for the sake of being graphic and shock value stupid. And I'm not down. I don't need to watch any of that shit. So I slid the slider bar a little forward until I saw Ellie was there, and then I kind of picked it up from there, caught some of the aftermath, and then watched the end.
So you didn't actually see anything then? You missed stuff that happened at Jackson, because after she hit him 3 times with the golf club, you heard it break, and then they were gone. They cut from it.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. I went back to everything. I watched the entire episode except the murder scene. So I went back to Jackson and watched how the
no, I'm saying that scene, that was the end of the scene.
I missed only that.
Yeah, where she hit him 3, and she only hit his leg 3 times. That's all you saw.
I'm good either way, because I know when I rolled it back over, I saw Ellie crawl across the floor. Joel's head looked like it had been bashed in.
Yeah, that's how when they cut back into that scene, that's what he looked like.
I'm good. I don't do the camera hung on it too long, even for me, even at that point. You know, like I'm good. I'm good not knowing. I'm good. Like I hated it in the game. I hated the story beat in the game. I think and the interesting experiment here is going to be, like I said last year, how many people stick around to watch the rest of this now? You know, and if it's fans of the show, maybe a lot. I might have been wrong.
I think the way that they did it in this season compared to the video game is that this will actually bring more people in, which is the way they did this episode. I think that is exactly what this second season needed. You needed that emotional push to push into the events that are going to lead for the rest of the season. That was the thing that was needed. That's why I had no issue with it. The way they did it was believable because I mean she didn't beat him standing toe to toe with him. She had him outgunned and surrounded. Then she shot him in the leg.
That wasn't how the game did it either. I mean, they played it smart, and actually they improved this. And I want to be very clear. I hated this narrative decision from the game. I've been very clear about that. But the show is effective, like you were just saying, and they actually improved in several places on what I know about the early section of the game, including this scene where in the game they have it that way. Joel's dumbass offers up his name to Abby's group, and that's how they know they have him. As if, grizzled survivor veteran Joel would just announce his fucking name to a random group of stragglers around the camp. Like you just wouldn't do that in that world. At least in this, it was Abby stumbled across them, or they stumbled across her, and Dina was calling out Joel's name. So to be like, Abby's like, oh snap, I fucking stumbled across them. I got exactly okay. So they resolved that at least, which was an improvement. It made Joel look slightly less fucking stupid. So I mean, I'll give them that they improved it, but there's just going to be, I think there's going to be a core group of people that are just not down for watching this show without Joel. And I think it's going to be because of problems with Bella Ramsey's version of Ellie. Like, dude, we spent the entire last episode talking about how tacitly unlikable this character is. Is she suddenly more likable because she crawled across the floor and cried? I don't know.
It could be that save the cat moment, as we've said before, for her, where it's like you saw because there was that tension between them before, and they talked about kind of like, he's always going to be Joel, I'm always going to be Ellie, this is who we are. But you also saw when they woke her up at the end of the last season, he was there with the guitar, and they were just staring at each other at the end of the episode. You didn't see her, you didn't see her walk off. In that morning scene when she's getting woke up, you see that the guitar's in her room.
Yep.
So they might have had a conversation. He gave the guitar, and they might have cleared a little bit of the air that we didn't see on camera.
I might have kind of wanted to see that. You know what I mean? That's one of those things that I'm saying when these shows only go 8-9 episodes. That's the kind of thing I might have wanted to see.
And maybe that was the
punch later.
The reason why she was saying, I will go with Joel, because maybe she had some more to say of what was going to go happen. And then she didn't get that opportunity.
I mean, another thing they could do with this show still is we could still probably get a bunch of Pedro Pascal via flashback.
Yeah, there's gonna be flashbacks of stuff that he trained her and talked about. Like you're gonna get a flashback to where he first taught her how to shoot a gun when she's probably like lining up a long distance shot. And you're gonna get sometimes
where in season 1. We saw a little because they did that scene. We're gonna get a flashback to that. I'm saying we'll probably get, because I doubt Pedro Pascal signed up to be in an episode and a half. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm guaranteeing he has a presence on this show. I can't imagine that he won't going forward. So I think we'll get, because there was that 5-year jump, we'll get new flashbacks of training stuff, like you said, or their relationship, or hints that she's figuring out maybe he lied about what happened, with the Firefly base and things like that. And we got to get Eugene resolution, I think. There might be a flashback between Joel and...
They keep hinting at what happened between Eugene, which I think something happened. He got bit, and then Joel had to put him down.
Yeah, because obviously nobody was happy about that. Nobody's expressed any kind of dislike for Eugene or anything, or that there was bad blood and Joel might have acted hastily or anything like that. But dude, it sucks being like a one-dimensional character in real life, right? On the one hand, I'm torn because a character I like from a game is off the show, but I gotta respect them for not being like, all right, half of you guys hated this shit, we're just gonna reverse course and change things. I mean,
we always say
wanted to tell.
And what we always said, if we have source material, stick to the source material. And they've done it really good. And that's the other thing. They improved upon it, like you said. It wasn't dumb. They improved upon it. So maybe they fixed some of the things that set up. Like maybe people were like, a lot of the feedback was that Joel wouldn't be that stupid. In this instant, there was a lot of chaos going on. He helped her, and she's like, and she's like, my friends will help you, and they come in, and then things kind of happen.
Well, and not for nothing. And just on that point, I'd have to go back and check the game. But you know how last week we were talking in Daredevil how New York is a character, how the city is a character, right? In this show, in this episode, that fucking blizzard was a character.
You know, that was a real blizzard.
Looming. Oh, makes it even more epic that they just shot during a snowstorm. That's awesome. Right? Number one. But it was a character that I thought very well framed, like this foreboding doom, where they were like, we're not gonna live if we try to get back to Jackson. So what? It's not that he walked into an ambush because he was an idiot. They had a split-second decision to make, which was get eaten or go up the mountain. So they went up the mountain and avoided the zombies and the storm. What can you do? It's not like he was just like blah blah blah. Hey everybody, I'm Joel. I shot up 800,000 fireflies in Utah, Salt Lake, or wherever the fuck it was.
Yeah, same thing.
Come kill me. You know. I keep thinking it was Colorado for some reason, but yeah,
Salt Lake's in Utah.
Salt Lake, and I know the capital. I'm aware of that. So they did improve upon that, but I wanted to just make that connection with the weather. I thought that was an excellent kind of, not like a framing device, but it was definitely a looming monstrous presence. Even it was actually more intimidating than the zombies to me. And I've been caught out in blizzards. It sucks.
And the way it started and the way it went through, it kind of went with the whole story beat of that whole episode. At first, it was off in the distance and it was coming in. The monsters, I'll just call them monsters. They refer to them a few times as monsters. The monsters were still coming. And then you had that point where it started to get there, and that's when they came out of the ground. And then when they were rushing, the main part of the storm was
came right in with them.
Yeah.
So I mean, the storm part was pretty slapping. So I mean, I think you're right. They improved a little bit upon how they wanted to follow that story beat. And I guess that's just how that's going to go. I get that the story that they want to tell, because Druckmann said it, and then the writer for the show was Craig Mazin. I think if I remember his name in the credits up front. He said, at the end of the post credits, and I was too annoyed by the show to watch it today. So if there's something cool in there, let me know.
There's a lot of cool stuff in that.
I'll have to go check that out then. Don't spoil it for me. But Mazin said, in that first episode post credits, they're trying to tell a story of the cycle of violence. Joel acts violently to save Ellie. It has consequences. It costs him his life. And then Ellie goes on her own vengeance quest where she wants to, kill Abby because of what happened to Joel. And, the violence there has an impact on her relationship with Dina and Spiral and so on and so forth. I mean, I get that they're trying to tell that kind of story. Here's where I got to cop out. I don't care. I just don't care, dude. I don't want to see that story. Just because it exists doesn't mean it's the one I want, and I'm just gonna have to deal with that. I know it. I'm just gonna have to deal with that. Well, that's where I'm at.
One of the other things you're gonna have to realize with this too is that now Abby has to live with that she did the exact same thing to Abby that was done to her. Now, how is she gonna respond to that? Yeah,
it made somebody watch though. It's worse. It's worse, dude. And but let's talk about some of the stupidness though, right? In the game, I'm not sure the setup where Joel meets Abby, and I should have fact checked this, but I got a little bit behind. I don't think that it involved Joel saving Abby's life. And I feel like that's a card that if this show wasn't rushed, like you mentioned earlier with the guitar being in Ellie's room, they kind of maybe brushed over a scene. I get that you're on a vengeance quest to kill a dude, but then you find the dude, and 8 seconds later, he objectively saves your life. Maybe a single scene where you you teeter and you're like, oh man, I don't know if I can go through with it. And then one of your crew is like, we came 900 miles to do this shit. You got to have something like that, dude.
You really don't. She's a true believer. She don't care if this guy cured cancer. Think of everybody who hates Trump right now. Yeah, he could cure cancer. He could bring in $300 trillion into our economy and clear out the deficit. And there will still be people on the left hating him because of who he is.
You're not wrong on that.
It's the same type of hatred that's here right now. She's just blinded by that red. All she sees is red.
But I think but see, okay, that's true. But then I'm going to do that thing you do. I'm going to flip a scene on you then. Then you have, and one of the things that annoys me most about this show is that I don't know anybody's names. Like they ran through Abby's crew's names like real quick when Dina and Joel
just call them the rest of the WLC.
I'm just gonna I would call them a bunch of people I'm not gonna fucking remember after next week. the tall dude. I'm gonna call him tall guy because they got tall guy, long hair guy, and 3 chicks, right, including Abby. So tall guy should have been the one to been like, maybe Abby gets back, she's warming up. He says, "Fuck happened?" He's like, "The horde jumped me. This piece of shit, he got me out. I got his girl, whatever. I don't know." And then he'd be like, "Wait a minute, he saved you?" And she's like, "Yeah." Well, don't you think we need to rethink some shit? And then she could be like, "Why? We came here for a fucking reason," and then go to work. There should have been something. It was a missed opportunity to either have her commit to the presentation of how single-minded she is or to show some conflict. And I'm a big fan of either of those approaches. But they went with 0.
I think the way that she did it, she showed that she was 100% like committed. This, like, everyone else were like ready to go. Maybe the bald girl, she was the only one that was kind of like in the middle, just a good soldier. But everybody else had their own little. And the Hispanic guy was kind of on her side, but the one guy who was supposed to have the plan, who in episode 1 says,
into going back, right?
Yeah, I was like, I'm here and I'm going to help you do this. And then of course the medic, she's just like, she didn't want to be there in the first place. You just
she's a tag along for sure. Yeah.
Yep.
So I get that, but that's what I mean. They could have had 1 40-second scene where like they take Joel, but somebody objects, and then the 5 of them have a real quick viewpoint thing going on. Dude.
But then
I like that.
Wouldn't that have tipped off Joel when he's already talking to them? There was actually no time in that.
But that's what I'm saying is the minute tall guy put the gun on Dina, somebody else could have put the gun and then zip tied Joel, and then they all could have fucking just had that chat. Even if Joel's in the room, because at that point he's zip tied, it wouldn't matter. You know what I mean? I just wanted to see some variation of that character work. That's some shit that Game of Thrones would have done.
No, Game of Thrones would have done exactly like this.
No way.
Yes.
Dude, no shot. Dude, Varys and fucking and Peter Baelish and Tyrion would have had a 3-way chat for 10 minutes, cutscene, and come back next week before killing him. And it wouldn't have been episode 2, it would have been episode 9.
Yeah, but if it would have been Stannis, he would have been dead.
True, but then if it was Game of Thrones, they would have just killed him with a cut to black off screen with somebody that didn't kill him in the book because he's still alive. So I mean, maybe Game of Thrones is an imperfect example, but I know you see what I'm going for. So we're just gonna have this is gonna have to go into our rare agree to disagree category. Yep. I just think it was underplayed.
I think
you're making great
perfect.
Points. Though,
I do think this worked out perfect. I can see where you would have that in there, but I don't see where it would play any more into this story at all because they were there on a mission.
I mean, it would have added a little bit more punch for me, but to something you talk about all the time about time and pacing, this episode already ran the 59 minutes, so they might not have had time, and there was no wasted time in this episode. We can move right along into like story. This was airtight pacing. They just went,
and I think that's what this one needed because the last episode dragged. It felt like a 3-hour episode in 48 minutes or whatever it ran. This one was like, go.
It was like an hour 2. He's over here like it was the Titanic, dude. It was an hour 2.
Yeah. I thought I had to put in a second VHS tape there for a while.
Like, please flip tape to side B. Like it was like audio.
But that's and that's why I think this episode was needed. This story beat needed to happen to get us out of first and get us into cruise in third before we hit the highway and drop it down into 6th.
Yeah, and open it up. But it's going to be interesting to see where they go forward from here. And again, maybe we should probably just like cut and then like wiki the story plot because I know a good portion of the game is spent in Abby's viewpoint, and that was one of the complaints that people had of the game after getting through the Joel part, immediately jumping into her shoes and being like, I don't like this fucking character. Why the hell do I want to play as her? What do we expect next from her? Or like, she's not going to be the POV character. It's going to be Ellie's show, right? So now Ellie's going to track Abby. How exciting is that?
I believe it's going to be a back and forth type show, kind of Daredevil, with Daredevil and Kingpin.
There's 2 teams, but like Abby's team now, like what's their goal? To where
they're going back to where they came from to be part of that militia unit. Yep. But one of the things they're going to go into is the worshipers who worship.
That was the tag on her bag, the Wolves or whatever, WLF.
Yes.
Right. Yep. Okay. So see, I don't know enough about them from the game, so that does give them something to play with.
Yeah, because like you remember the first trailer for the second game, right? So it's been a minute to remind me if you know. I believe it's the medic, and she's being pulled up on a tree like this, And then this other girl comes out, this older lady, and like they're like true believers in like this is like the work of God is these creatures and that they should be worshipped or something like that. Like I said, I haven't played the games, especially I know who you were, and you said have these guys even played the game? The answer is no. I did not. I played part 1. I did not play part 2.
Me neither. I think we were both abundantly clear on that in everything that wasn't that short that dude commented on, which is why I did not comment back.
Yep. We have not played the game. I've watched a lot of the cutscenes, and I remember the trailer, but they're talking about like how it's going to be an angel, and they're like, all right, give her wings, and they take a sledgehammer and go through her arm while it's held out on both sides.
Yeah, so probably skip over that too.
That is going to be her antagonist, and they hinted at that in the post-credit thing. And then if you go back to last week, they did a series trailer where you saw a lot of the beats happening.
I remember that. We talked about that. They're like, hey, this can't all be episode 2. And we were like, no shot.
Yeah.
But they had a lot of it in there. There was a lot of that stuff that was episode 2. It was just all the siege sequence. And I think that's we should talk about that because there was a lot of good and a lot of bad in that siege sequence. So the setup is the town is kind of reeling from Ellie's report that, one of the clickers or one of the zombies or whatever, it's new, the stalker, we called it, right?
Yeah. It was one of the runners that were a little more intelligent,
a little bit more intuitive. And then they kind of up the ante here where they're like, one of our patrols got ambushed by like 30 of them. So we sent a squad out to exterminate, and they found a bunch of bodies that like this smallish horde was using to insulate themselves underground. So that's even like higher, like survival instinct intelligence right there. So the town's already on high alert. Tommy, and the wife's name is Maria. I don't know if you caught that. Maria is the wife name. They said.
Yeah, when they had the Seth apology for what happened at the dance. Which
was from the game, so I was all right with that scene, and I thought everybody behaved in that scene like I would have expected. But they're setting up the town. They have the town on high alert. They got the watchers on the walls. They're moving ammo cans. They're placing barricades in like a ready position and everything else. So they're on high alert. They had Tommy has the town meeting where he's like, I got, this is the plan. Gunners on the roofs, women and children, or old people and children, they said, in the basements, barricade up, shelter in place, stay off of Main Street. You don't want to be there when it pops off. That worked out. So I liked all this buildup. I'm like, oh, snap, we're getting ready. And even though I hate the part where paradise always burns, I said that last week. I don't like that part and stuff, but it has to happen. It's the trope. But they had their battle, and we'll get into the specifics. But they didn't abandon Jackson.
No.
Did you watch enough Walking Dead to get to the prison part?
I made it to episode 4.
Oh no! I thought you said you made it to season 4 when we were
episode 4.
Okay, never mind. It's just like it's typical. The group moves from place to place and they inhabit a base. They fortify and things like that.
Yeah, one of the actors I worked with was in there.
Oh, cool.
Was in the prison.
Cool. Okay, cool. But then the drama happens or the conflict happens and there's a breach and then they have to hit the road again and move on.
Yeah,
but they didn't do that here, which I thought was cool. Like they're survivors. There was a single breach in the wall that all hell poured through. They're going to probably shore that up. Why leave? You know what I mean? It's still the best. I mean, they could probably defend it better. I have talking points on that, but I'm glad that they're not. I'm glad that it's not an on the road show because then to me it is just Walking Dead, and I don't even care if that's how part 2 went in the game. Like it's how is that fun to follow? I've already seen that show.
Yeah, that did not happen in part 2. Part 2, you go through what Abby's doing, and you're fighting that cult. I'll just call it a cult.
Whatever.
Yeah, and then you play Ellie, who's hunting Abby.
Right. Yeah, so I'm glad that they're still there in Jackson. It was interesting that they tied Abby, Joel, and Dina into like that their escape. Or actually, there was Abby that caused the horde to run on the base.
Yeah, Abby caused everything in this episode.
Right. They tied that all together very nicely, and I thought that worked out pretty good. That her just being on a scout patrol for her group, she gets caught up in an avalanche, falls down a fucking hill into that area where they had found the 30 bodies and the squad had put down the 30 zombies, and we're like, hey, there's probably, we don't know how many more under the snow.
It could be 30, it could be 1,000.
And I thought that was pretty solid. It was a bit on the nose foreshadowing, because if you're paying attention and you saw the post credits, you're like, okay, so there is actually 1,000. All right. But it worked. And I like that, because that's setup and payoff. We're talking about that all the time. Side note, I like the Jesse character. I like him. I think him and Tommy are probably my go-to characters on this show now. I like both of the actors are kind of nailing what they need to do. Especially Tommy, to a degree.
Yeah, for a second there, I thought we were going to lose both brothers in the
same
episode.
Oh, dude, I was yelling upstairs to Mrs. Wolf. I was like, "That's it. The show's done. I'm done. I'm over it. Can't do it. Still might not." But and I'm not sure. And if you know from research, don't tell me about if either of them die or anything. Like, let me get to that.
No, I haven't seen anything on it, so
avoid that too, so we can kind of go through that together as it comes up. You know what I mean? But the Siege of Jackson, right? Dude, you play RTS games, you play strategy games, you know the genre, you write in the genre, right? The defense starts off so good. The zombies are on the horizon. They're like, the guy in the watchtower is like, hit the bell, and they hit the bell. Everybody assembles. There's people just going places, doing things, gearing up. Everybody's getting in place and doing shit. And then I'm like, I'm waiting. Dude, they hit the wall like a fucking tidal wave. And then Tommy's like, let them have it. And I'm like, you guys all have rifles and shit. Why aren't we fucking shooting these things out the way? Start shooting. Thin them out.
They wouldn't hit anything. With that wind, you wouldn't have hit anything.
Fair. The storm was coming. All right, fair. All right, you got me. But when they're right underneath you, you didn't have to wait till they hit the wall.
Yeah, I thought they would shoot a little bit sooner, but when they first saw them in the distance, all you're doing is wasting ammo at that.
The weather's a great point. I mean, if it was no wind and it was human targets that you could drop with, like flesh wounds, you start shooting, right? You have to.
Yeah. Like once they're on 300 yards.
Right. When we watch We Were Soldiers, like, dude, when they're rushing the line, you can shoot them. You can shoot anything you can hit and it'll go down. Zombies a little different, but so they do the Game of Thrones thing up on the wall where they drop down the barrels, and as soon as they flip those brackets out, I was like, oh snap, flaming barrels on the way. Right? I was like, that's not a zombie scoop. My son was asking whether they gonna scoop zombies. I'm like, no, the barrels are gonna come through. We saw them rolling the drums into position, and then they hit the ground, and I'm like, Tommy, they like 100 million of these have already run past the barrels. Shoot the barrels, dude. Like, you got to ignite them now. And then they're plinking barrels. And then he's like, hold. And then they throw the torches. I'm like, dude, you should have set the fucking ground on fire before they got there.
So when you have an ambush and you're in a fixed position and you have a set ambush, you don't shoot the point guy when he gets in front of you. You wait till the second or third guy's in front of you. Then you take them out. Then you have the front that's trapped and then the rear that has to go through it. Yep.
Yeah.
So it played in quite nicely. You had the front hit through. They had the barrels and they started getting the liquid out, and then they threw it, and then it took out a bigger portion of the horde.
Listen, it did work, and I'll say this: I got two things. Then I want more of your opinion on the attack. I like the little. There was a single touch, and I was like, attention to detail plus 10 points. Tommy's he's not zoomed in. He's not like aiming, but he's at the ready. And when the horde hits the wall, he jolts because the fucking wall shakes. And I'm like, that's visual storytelling. That's pretty slapping. You didn't need to show me, 700 things at the moment they hit the wall. And they got to that later with another wave. But all you had to do is show me a grown man standing who gets like a bump, like something bumped a boat, like a big whale hit his boat, like nudged it. Like, okay, that's pretty slapping. That was pretty good. So I did like that part. I did like watching them just bullet hose, like the pile of them as they start doing the World War Z thing. And they're going up the wall. And I'm like, dude, all you not just shoot straight down. Like, just let them have it.
And that's what they was doing. It wasn't until the bloater came through and broke through the wall. And as soon as he saw him, he knew it. And he knew it. He's like, we're going to be breached. Dude, we're going to be breached.
See, this is the problem. And this is where I yelled up the stairs for the second time. Like, these guys know what that thing is, right? And even if they didn't, it's a unique thing in a field of 1,000 things. How is Tommy not just like it's Helm's Deep? Legolas, shoot the big one. Fucking everybody shoot the big one. It's still organic. Gunfire would have torn it apart at some point. And they're like, "No, we're just gonna let it hit the wall, bro. It's cool." Like, they have a single rocket launcher in this bitch? Not one.
No,
not one.
Yeah, where they're in the
Come on.
scout it from?
Anywhere, any military base post the fall.
There isn't one in like the closest one they would be is JBLM, and that would be like 17 days on horseback there.
It's prepper country. Somebody could have brought one in a year ago and they could have had it in the armory. Dude, I wanted to see that rocket launcher, even if they missed. Like, I wanted it foreshadowed in the armory when they opened the box and they were taking the rifles out. I'm like, dude, there needs to be an RPG on the wall.
No, it was more realistic with them having rifles,
civilian
and
arms,
stuff like that.
Yeah, I get that. But
in cases of them.
Which again, they had 5 years to prep for this. This is what I'm saying. So you mean in that entire time they found not one abandoned Humvee, APC, anything that had RPG?
Not in Wyoming. There is nothing in Wyoming.
Dude, it's 5 years after the fall. Shit has moved around. I'm not saying they had to be an active base. It could have been in fucking.
But they don't have cars. You're talking about they have to do this on horseback.
That's true. So they can't range that far. But dude, they had people coming in. Dude, there's ways we could make this work. You're trying too hard to make it not work. I wanted a rocket launcher. I got flamethrowers, kinda.
You got like real flamethrowers.
Well, we started with a bunch, and then we had one because literally 3 people ran away, which was the funniest shit.
One was taken down. One was taken down.
Oh, the one that stayed with him, right? 2 of them bailed. They're like, "Nah, fuck it, I'm out."
And one was hit by a runner.
A human response. And then Tommy gets into it with the flames, does his thing, and this is where the episode starts to fall apart for me a little bit. It's all very visually well done. Effects are great. Practical effects on the clickers are great. The bloater looked like a dude in a suit. I thought it was probably some rubber suit going on there, especially with the legs. They look like they were like stubby, like regular people legs. I don't know. What did you think of the bloater? Like up close in broad daylight.
I think they did all right with them. It was a blend of both practical and CGI effects in it.
I think so too. I think that's why I thought it looked a little wonky. I think there was a dude in a suit, and then they layered him with the golem tech. But Tommy, right? He runs off the wall to warn the wife of the breach. Why he didn't use the radar to tell her? Don't know. The plot needed him to be on the ground, I guess.
Radio, cool. Not radar. They didn't have radar, bro.
No, radio. That's what I said. You had the handset in my hand. Radio. Right? Didn't use that, I guess. Maybe threw it when he was out of ammo. Runs down the street, takes the flamethrower. He's going to work. Zombies are for some reason avoiding him, and they're just like running around him, and no one's taking a shot at him, and he's just burning shit down, which is fine. Gets into that alley. Right. And this is I don't know, what am I up to? Like the 5th time I yelled up the stairs. He runs down the alley and is surprised that the exit is blocked. Like, bro, this is your town. You probably told people to put shit here. Like, how are you surprised that you walked into the kill box? It's you. It was your idea.
Because it's chaos.
Yeah. I guess, maybe, be better than that. But he lets the flames go.
Yeah.
Right. My man was roasting marshmallows there. Tell me about that scene from the upper side.
That was like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man type roasting right there. And all I could think about was the game and watching the health bar go down. I'm like, who's going to run out first? His gas or that health bar?
That PSI gauge, man. I was like, oh, snap. So, and that happens too. Like, he runs it out. And he just falls on the ground. And I get they're going for realism where they can here. Like, what else do you do except you hit the ground? You just kind of look away, right? Yeah. But then Big Papa kind of just falls down next to him, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, the remaining burn damage from there finally takes out that last ticks down to 0, and he goes down.
Finally got him. Dude,
I would have stood up with my handgun and still shot him like 3 more times.
Oh yeah, dude. Picked him a few times out of
always
rage.
Double tap.
Yeah,
Rule 2.
What I thought to see they had the cardio down though, because my man ran like 4 blocks from like
with a flamethrower,
with the flamethrower shit, and then zigzagging and everything.
But that was the net smart thing he did. As soon as everything was clear for him, he dropped that weight. He's like,
how much does the flamethrower weigh? How much does that shit weigh? 40 pounds?
Yeah, unloaded? Easy.
That's what I'm saying. Even ungassed. So I was waiting though, because I was gonna revert to my old ways, and I was gonna have the woke card ready, and I'm like, his wife's going to shoot this fucking thing in the back of the head and save him. Nope. But thankfully, that did not happen because
she was the first one to actually I need to target this one, and she was unloading on that one though. And then he was like, "Oh, he's like, I'm going to go take her out." He's like, oh, and that's when he came up and got its attention with the handgun, and he's like, "Easier target. I'm going after him now."
No, I mean, all the civilians they did their work, which was cool to see in this kind of show.
You said you want to see a hero moment. That was your hero moment right there.
It was. I mean, and there were a lot of small ones like that. And then she had the plan. I thought this was kind of cool. I wanted to see this in something like Game of Thrones, where she gets down to the kennel and lets the dogs out. And I'm like, okay, because the music was swelling a little bit behind. I was like, okay, this is the turning point. They called for K9 backup. Here we go.
Release the hounds.
Release the hounds. I'm like, dude, this was Game of Thrones. It could have been Ghost and a bunch of dire wolves, and that shit would have been sick. They didn't do that on Game of Thrones. No, like the dogs just come in and go to work.
The dogs are the eagles of The Last of Us.
Dude, that's basically what they did, right? And then it hit me though, and I'm like, I think in the game, animals could be infected by cordyceps too. So if a dog bites one of these assholes, do you now have 12 zombie dogs that are fast moving and vicious? I think that's the thing.
I think they talked about that in the first season, is that dogs were immune.
Oh, and I think you're right. I think animals in general, I think, were immune because they didn't have zombie bears or giraffes and all that other shit. I think you're right.
Yeah, I think they touched on that in the infamous episode 3 when she finds the dog.
Yep, I think you're right. I think that's canon. I think that's lore accurate from the game as well. I do remember having to shoot dogs that were trying to kill me in the game though, but they weren't zombie, creeper feely out of the mouth dogs. But anyways, her letting the dogs out was pretty slick.
Yeah,
right? Thought that was all right. So I was down with that. So I think.
And did you see Tommy's confidence? Because he's there and he starts backing up, and all of a sudden he hears the dogs, and then he starts moving forward again.
That's what I mean. There was a musical cue, and then that body language cue, and it was like that was literally the tipping point in the battle, because then we get all the Joel stuff, I think.
Yep.
And then we go back
to Joel, where they finish off Joel, and that Ellie gets there and everything like that.
Right. And then everything after that is basically mop up work in Jackson, where they have the very poignant scene. It was the guy up on the rooftop, shows the guy the bite on his arm and hands the guy his gun.
Yeah.
And then like at the low part of the frame, you just see
you just see the flash.
Right. And in other parts, I think we see it was in the distance. It might not have been like a repeat of that, but you basically know that's what's going on. Like everywhere as they're doing the cleanup. And then it wraps with Ellie and Jesse on one horse. Dina's still drugged on the other one. But they had wrapped Joel's body in their
and they're bringing it back to Jackson. And you did see that in the background, like you see the horse going up to the trailer from a distance wide shot.
Yeah.
So you see when he got there.
I said that the siege part was probably one of the better zombie invasion scenes and things. They didn't linger on anybody being like shredded up too bad. I mean, people are getting taken down, and by implication like what's going on. The older folks and the kids sheltering in like the basements behind the barricaded doors. Like they were never in any kind of graphic danger. They didn't bother letting a zombie down there to like smoke out 30 of them. So I'm good with that. I can watch people be afraid, but I'm not trying to watch little kids get zombie. I'm good.
Yeah.
With that shit. Don't need that at all.
But as I said, I think this episode was exactly what this season needed to get everything started. I'm really excited to see what the aftermath is and where it goes from there. We got a little hint of that in the after credits trailer for episode 3.
I'll have to go check that out.
Yep. It's pretty much, we saw Dana saying, "I know their names," because she was there and when they all introduced themselves.
She did the intro, right?
Yeah. So she's like, "I know their names and I know their organization." She draws out the logo that she saw on the belt. Yeah. And then you have you see Ellie like punching a bag, but I believe this is going to be the opening scene is where she waits up in the hospital where Joel saves her. Like she's having a nightmare, kind of like what Abby was having at the beginning of this episode.
Yeah. So I think it's probably smart if they do the bounce back thing, but I'm not sure. Again, I don't know what we never really got the Venn diagram of what the population of people that played the game, enjoyed the game, watched the show, enjoyed the show, and how they separate. You know what I mean? Like what percentage of viewers are going to follow this show through? Like, I wonder where the polarization mark is going to hit, or if those people just weren't watching in the first place.
Yeah, I think the haters of the haters, the top tier haters weren't in to begin with. I
wouldn't be watching the show if we didn't have a channel.
I think if people who are just norms, who are just watching a show, who never played the video game, I think they're in and they're locked in. Like they should be excited right now. Now you got your middle people who've like played game 1, didn't play game 2. I didn't play it because I didn't want to pay that much for it. I was out of buying games at that point.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason I didn't play it. I wasn't paying for games anymore. I mean, you kind of get caught in that trap of buying the same game over and over again. You don't want to do it anymore. I mean, how many times did we buy each year of Madden and all it is an updated roster and worse gameplay?
Yeah, dude, seriously.
So I think there's going to be that middle there that played the game, kind of enjoyed it. There's going to be those who didn't like the story, but I think the live action version of it takes it a little bit out of the video game and shows more of just the story beat of it in a more story setting. And I think they'll still be locked into the show, even if you didn't like it in the game.
I think there's an opportunity there to do something that bridges the gap, because the siege of Jackson didn't happen. Like, I don't think it happens at all in the game. I think that's something they invented for the show.
I think they did too.
Especially at the early point. I don't remember ever hearing anybody talk about that in coverage of like some of the scandals that went down when the second game came out with the copyright strikes and some of that kind of other stuff. People weren't really talking about that. So if they have other stuff up their sleeve like that on that level, it might be okay.
Yeah. One of the things I'm going to spoil from like, you should have watched the post-credit stuff. I'm just telling you.
I'll go watch it.
They had Tommy talking, and he's like, when we got the first version of the script, I'm thinking, oh, we're going to get a new version of it. They're going to scale this down. He's like, and they didn't. And it was
about the level of coolness of
everything that was going on at the same time. He's like, actually, it grew. He's like, each department, like talking about the actors, all the crew, all the different, like the makeup, the special effects, the grips, the lighting, wardrobe. Who am I missing in here?
Craft services on that ass.
Craft services. You got your AD department, and then you have your props department was the big one. Like all of them were they said they were stressed out to the beginning, but he's like, but if we pull this off, we're gonna have some legendary TV on this one.
Oh, no, for sure. Like I have tactical criticisms of like what characters do, but like that's Monday morning quarterback shit. Like it all looked great. Like as the chaos going down, like I said, as Tommy's moving through the street, and then on the rooftops as Maria's moving through the rooftops and trying to get to where she's trying to go and pick shots. I will say this: if I had a nitpick performance wise, I'm not sure I'm sold on Maria, right? Because in that entire sequence, right, she knows Tommy's in danger, shows no emotion. She watches people getting eaten across the rooftops, takes some shots, no emotion. There's a dude in front of her at one point that kind of blocks for her so they can advance. He gets pulled off screen to the right, goes down, no emotion. And I'm like, screams, anger, fear, anything, like just emote, do something. Nothing.
There are people who are like that. They get locked into the moment.
And they're not former PTO members. They're military guys, they're cops, they're firefighters, they're ER nurses that have done trauma. This lady, she's on the school board. I don't buy that she's just stone cold on the move. Minor nitpick, and it's only when stacked against Tommy's performance, which was awesome in like 5 different places. Looking unsure up on the deck, and then trying to pull together enough confidence to call Jackson Hole as like the rally cry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's angry when he's dueling with the flamethrower, scared when he thinks he's gonna die, and then like you said, like when the dogs come through and he's like, "Oh, all right, bitches," and he starts leading somewhat of a charge. Like there's some range there, and Joel and Ellie are Joel and Ellie. They're actors we know they can play.
Yeah.
This chick, I think it was just it was underwhelming for that scene. And dude, who knows? Like you said, if she goes on to blaze of glory in 2 episodes, great. It was just a weak thing for her to have right now.
Yeah. One of the
things
things
might have been directed to do that. I don't know.
They said about the Jackson Hole is that they've hinted at that this settlement has been raided before and they've like rallied to hold it. And that's what they were trying to play at. Like they've been through this before. That's why there was already a plan in place. That's why they had stuff like that. They wanted to have it like, this isn't just, utopia that happened here. There is the Huns at the gate constantly.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Oh, dude, this is Frontiers Town, USA, like you said, dude, enemy at the gate for sure. They even called, like when the warning bell went up, they were like infected or raiders. Like they specifically said that.
Yeah.
So they probably had a plan for each of those situations. Probably would have been mostly the same. It's siege warfare. to a degree, but that's exactly how that community works. They had their fire drill plan, you know, who goes where and does what, who's in whose group, because I think that was the end of Tommy's meeting. Check in with your group leaders, you know, to know what your specific task kind of thing. But this is the kind of town that like we saw in season 1 and even in the games, and this is how these things kind of work in these dystopian kind of compounds. It does run kind of communistic. It has to when survival's on the line. People have to be assigned tasks. You might not get the job you want when survival's on the line, literally, you know? So if you're going to spend 10 hours cracking pipes, because that's a big reveal that like we didn't even get to address because the invasion came. Dude's working on the sewer pipes, pulls some roots out, and all of a sudden he sees the squigglies and he's like, oh, fuck Tommy. But before Tommy can get there.
Yeah, Tommy turned his head and that's when the bells hit. Right. It was like perfect timing. Right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I'm excited for NetSuite to see what the fallout of all of this is, because that guy's going to finally get a chance to talk to Tommy if he's not dead.
That's true too. That's true too. But even if he doesn't, someone will probably pick up that work and have to realize what it is. Will they realize it in time because that guy may have died? Who knows? So I mean that's a bit of a ticking clock anyway.
Yeah.
But let me get a question out to you before we get into scores and wrap up. Right. I hate to do it to you. You know what's coming. I'm going to mention the show. I know you'll love it. You remember how the Power of One, Power of Two, Power of Many episode of The Acolyte was like the benchmark? There was like, we knew what numbers were, and then we saw the cliff drop, and we knew that show was toast on episode 4. Like people showed up for the train wreck episode, and then they were done. Yeah, showed back up a little bit. Folks trickled back in when they heard there was a Jedi battle a couple episodes later, and it did. There was a spike in viewership when Darth S&M guy or whatever his name was,
the stranger,
Darth Stranger there murdered 7 Jedis. Nobody cared. Nobody collected their bodies. There was no grave detail, no nothing. We got a tick there. I think the quality of the production of this episode, like you were saying, even if Joel's gone, was the episode so good in every other way that there might be a minor drop from people leaving, or is there no drop it off at all? Actually, we kind of talked about that, where you were like, it's just part of the story. You just don't like the story, but it was well done. So we're not going to see a cliff.
No, we're not going to see a drop off. If anything, you're going to see a spike. I think you're going to see a pickup.
Like a little notoriety. People, oh, damn, they did the thing. Now I got to go back and watch and catch up.
Yeah, it's like the end of episode 1 of Game of Thrones. Like the whole episode was pretty boring until that last bit where he pushes Bran out the window.
Oh yeah, I think you meant the end of season 1 with the Ned Stark thing. You're literally talking about the episode 1. Yeah, dude, it was a bit slow. There was a lot of setup, and then it ended on a big FU that made the whole world come back and watch the next episode. But I wonder how much people are going to be invested in Ellie, being that she's not a mega likable character. Like she's not Jon Snow. That's kind of in my head what I'm trying to bat around. People wanted to see Robb Stark and Jon Snow and Tyrion Lannister succeed in what they were trying to do. People wanted to see Daenerys succeed until she, murdered 6 million people. Yeah, that went kind of sideways on them. Do people like Ellie enough to care if she gets revenge because I don't think she's that likable. I think that's a problem the character had in the game, number 1, especially part 2. But on this show, like you were saying last week, dude, she's more unlikable so far.
Yeah, she's
like the one save the cat beat that they had this episode.
And which I think she's acting out because everything abandons her. Everything dies and everything abandons her. So she's trying to close people off. Even though she's a susceptible to romantic interest, she's very closed off as a person. And that's why her and Joel worked on the road, because they were constantly and they didn't have time to sit down and actually think about it. It was always jump to the next thing, jump to the next thing, jump to the next thing. When they had 5 years to live together, you saw that divide happen, and she enclosed herself into her own little group. She's not part of the community. They pretty much they don't know if she was coming to New Year's when everybody's coming to the New Year's thing. So she's kind of that closed off person. You might see a change in her because of this, where she's might open up to people to get help other than Dina.
I think that was if I remember the story to game 2 right, I think that would be wishful thinking on your part. I think the whole point of the cycle of violence story they go with is that Dina was as close to that kind of contact as she was going to get and she starts to have to push Dina away, who's trying to be the one to tell her, cooler minds need to prevail. The cycle of violence needs to stop, and then Ellie kind of pushes her away to go pursue that goal. So, but who knows? I mean, we're probably going to get a little bit of both. Maybe she tries what you said for a little while, but then there's too much anger to her, and she knows she has to do something. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where they go. I don't know how Abby's group found them anyway across the country in a world with no GPS, no internet, no facial recognition. Some old school, Western U.S. Marshal tracking bounty hunter skills. I don't know. I don't know how Ellie's gonna reverse that.
I don't know about you, but maps are still the same.
But you have literally no idea where anybody went. But they don't know where anybody went.
And that was the thing why they were in the militia. They were getting hints and there's always stories of people coming out. I mean, that was one of the big things that they did in the show Jericho, is they had boards where people were writing stories as they came in, and they would leave it behind so people could read what was going on in other places. So it worked. Yeah,
people communicated before we had phones.
Yeah.
It worked, but I'm guessing it doesn't work as quick as it does right now if I needed to get a hold of you to fix something on the site. You know what I mean? So I don't think we're doing.
And that's why it took 5 years for them to figure out they're in Wyoming, and they were just in Utah. It's not that far.
So when we pick up on the next episode, Ellie's going to be 37 years old, because it was a big time jump, and she's going to pursue Abby all the way back to Boston or some shit. Okay, I guess so.
Yeah,
all right, let's do this, dude. Let's do points, because now I'm excited because you're excited. I know you're not giving it a 5. How close to 10 are you going? Just get it out of the way.
I'm going with 9. This was a 9 episode. It was
9
solid. It will bring fans in, even though you lose one of your key main characters and one of the lead actors in this. I think it's what this story needed to propel it forward, or you were just going to get a repeat of season 1.
True. All right. Best part of the episode for you?
Best part of the episode? Oh, I would have to say it was the siege.
You can't say the siege. You got to pick one aspect.
One aspect?
Yep. Can't do the whole siege. The siege was obviously great.
Actually, I'm going to go with the way they had their defenses set up with the towers everywhere and the overlapping patrols. I think that was properly done and how things should be.
They put a lot of thought into base defenses and that how that whole thing works. And they made sure to tell you about it too, because Abby's guys I got dogs too. They get overlapping patrols. They get 4 points of entry, all covered with overlapping fields of fire. It wasn't just lights and tents.
Yeah,
and that was a good scene too. When they woke up the next morning, they're in the lodge and they're looking down and they're like, "Oh my god, it's a fucking city."
Yeah.
Whoops. Whoops a doodle. We don't even know where he is. All right. Worst part of the episode, or lowest part. No, you won't call it worst because you gave it a 9.
Yeah, lowest part of the episode. Honestly, I think it flowed quite well.
Cool. All right, dude. I'm gonna give it an 8, and it's all craft points basically. I'm taking petty points off because I don't like Joel leaving. I hate that's not a thing, but I understand the validity and the story that they're going for with the cycle of violence stuff. So I'll take a couple points off there. There was too much crap that I don't think I would have done while playing the game if the game played out like that siege, like walking into the alley, or not taking shots this time or that time. And in my head, it's all a game. You know what I mean? It's not me real life zombie siege. It's petty, but I'm doing it this week. High point for sure. Anything Tommy did, I love everything he did, and I think the interest in the hero on the show is shifting to him for me for as long as he survives, for sure. Low point, I think, is just overall it's Joel leaving, and I'll make one more Game of Thrones comparison. When Ed Stark gets chopped off the show at the end of season 1, you have an ensemble cast around him that you're interested in seeing what they go do next in a lot of different ways. His wife, his kids, Daenerys, Tyrion Lannister's over here, Baelish and Varys. There's all kinds of stuff going on that make that world interesting. Without Joel and Ellie, I'm not sold on anything being interesting enough to carry it for me 8 more episodes. We're just trading vengeance quests. We saw Abby resolve hers. Now we're going to be on Ellie, and then whatever weird stuff Abby has with that faction, that cult. Maybe that's interesting enough. I don't know about that. So I'll hang a hopeful question mark to see if that does it for me. So I don't know. A begrudging 8. I wanted to be really petty. and go low and be like, oh, fuck you for not changing the story from the game. But mature Wolf is going to prevail here and say, all right, they stuck to their guns. They made a decent show episode wise, but it's going to be a totally different show going forward. And it has to be. So yeah, I think that's going to do it for our take. We'll be back next Monday. Or no, we release these on Tuesday. Never mind. Look for coverage on episode 3 next Tuesday for The Last of Us Season 2. And maybe we'll see you guys then.